Welcome to the Bookies Plus weekly betting show where you will get free NFL picks for week 9 from our gambling experts. Now, remember, you can also get our free picks, bookies.com/picks, and you need to go there, free account, set it up now because all of our picks and explanations are there. You don't want to miss that. Again, bookies.com/picks. NFL picks, other sports, totally got you covered there. Don't forget, we are back every Thursday. Next week, programming note, we will begin a little earlier at 11 a.m. Eastern, a 1 week difference. Normally, this is the time we're on. Anyway, this week we'll have picks from Adam, the ATM Thompson. You're talking 60% or better of winners over the last 3 years. NFL, Nick the Whalen, NBA, NFL, RotoWire, VSiN, DraftKings. Nick's got you covered. I'm Jim Coventry, and we are going to get rolling here. Adam and I are going to talk some Los Angeles Chargers laying 8.5 points.
Yeah, down from 10 points earlier in the week at Tennessee. And maybe people are just saying, you can't take a double-digit road favor. That's insanity. But more insanity is not fading Tennessee until they're competitive for at least 1 week. No Titans loss since week 1 has been by less than 10 points. 4 of them have been by 18-plus points. They haven't covered the spread in 11 straight home games. That is the longest streak in the history of recorded NFL sports betting landscape. So, obviously Tennessee just doesn't bring a whole lot to the table. Jeffrey Simmons isn't going to play again. Cam Ward gets sacked more than anybody else. On the flip side, the Chargers, the last few weeks, ranked number 1 in total yards, number 1 in pass yards, number 3 in scoring. Joe Alt is back. That has made a huge difference for Justin Herbert, of course. I think how does Tennessee keep up with an offense like that? The answer is they don't. So 30-13 is what the score kind of sounds like. And another Tennessee non-cover at home.
Yeah, hard to add much to this. But the thing with the Chargers is that offense, especially against limited defenses, it's getting dangerous. They can run, they can pass every level of the field. They're very good attacking the short and intermediate areas. But in a game like this, where Quentin Johnston goose-egged last week, look for a play-action shot this week because without Jeff Simmons, that pass rush really, really evaporates. Arden Key, outside linebacker, trending toward not playing either. That's another massive potential loss. So like Adam said, don't overthink this one. And remember, there are haves and have-nots in the league this year, and the chasm is getting bigger and bigger. We'll talk a little more about that in our closing thoughts later today. Nick Whalen, you got some Detroit Lions, 8.5-point favorites against their division rival, the Vikings, and that number doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, a lot of big favorites to choose from this week. I don't mind taking the Chargers. I prefer the Lions a little bit more, but Adam laid it out pretty well for why it's really more a fade of the Tennessee Titans than anything else. A team not only who just doesn't cover every week, but is failing to cover by 7.5 points against the numbers. So they're facing a big number every week. They're still not coming close. Detroit is the team, among the elites in the NFL that I think I trust the most to cover an ultimately uncomfortable number in 8.5. It's a divisional game. Obviously, Minnesota is very capable of keeping this close, but man, you don't want to overvalue what you saw last week. That was a brutal two-way game from the Minnesota Vikings, who really haven't been able to run the ball all season unless they've been facing a terrible defense. Detroit is not that. They're a top 5 run defense in the NFL. A lot of this for me is somewhat of a soft fade of J.J. McCarthy. I'm not saying that the book is closed on McCarthy being a good quarterback. He started 2 NFL games way too early to speculate on that, but we have to work with what we've seen. I didn't love it the first 2 weeks of the season, and Detroit's getting healthier. We saw that secondary actually play really well before the bye, despite being without like 5 key pieces. Brian Branch is back. Some of those injured D-backs should return this week. Overall, guys, we always hear Brian Flores defense, that's going to be tough. That is true in general. The Lions have scored at least 30 in 4 straight games against the Vikings. They've averaged almost 400 total yards in those games. The Lions have scored 30 plus now in 9 of their last 11 at home. They've scored 47 and 41 in their last 2 games off of a bye. Jared Goff, by the way, with extended rest, 15 and 4 against the spread as a member of the Lions, covering those spreads by over 6 points per game. So I think Detroit probably gets to 30 here. It's going to be an uphill battle for the Minnesota Vikings to score with that Lions team.
A lot of people don't like to talk about the offensive lines, but the Vikings, it's been a horrible run for them. Darisaw, left tackle, back from a knee injury. He left last week's game. He is not right, clearly not recovered. Right tackle, Brian O'Neill, left last week with a knee injury. Even if he plays, his mobility is going to be down. Center Ryan Kelly, injured reserve. And that's exactly what Nick was talking about earlier, that Detroit front, it's going to feast. And J.J. McCarthy, without great offensive line help, wow. So, yeah, Nick, on that one with you. Adam, you're going to go to Packers minus 12.5. And if you also had any thoughts on that Minnesota-Detroit game, feel free to add as well.
No, I completely agree. I mean, JJ McCarthy, he's coming back from an injury. He didn't look great before, and he had one good quarter basically that kind of cemented a legacy for a lot of people. And before and after that, though, he was one of the bottom 3 quarterbacks in the league statistically. So I think Dan Campbell's just going to feast on that game. Speaking of feasting, the Green Bay Packers host the Carolina Panthers. Sounds like Bryce Young's going to play, but he's going to have issues in front of a roughed up offensive line against that Packers front. He's not going to have a whole lot of time. I think moving the ball, especially through the air, is going to be a concern with Carolina. And on the other side, Green Bay is, Jordan Love is improving. Green Bay is healthy. The run game is now a 2-headed monster, which I think is a great way to approach it. And the other thing, Carolina, they've surprised some people. They're looking better than what a lot of people thought. At home, especially on the road, they have not been overly great. And if the playoffs started now, they would have played 2 playoff caliber opponents so far. And in those 2 games, they lost 82-22 combined. Green Bay will be the 3rd playoff caliber opponent. They are tops in the NFC right now. Another side note, Matt LaFleur against non-NFC North, against non-divisional opponents, covers 65% of the time. That is the best of any coach in the league.
Oh, that's fabulous. And I tell you what, Bryce Young, I'm on record. Terrible quarterback, 13 days removed from a high ankle sprain. Oh, yeah, his mobility is going to be great when he has Micah Parsons breathing down his neck. I wish the young man makes it through the game intact. That's what I'm wishing for him, but definitely Packers. Nick, if you've got anything on that game, you can go ahead, but we're also, when we're done with that, you and I are going to grab the Colts. You'll start first. Again, any comments, Packers, feel free.
Yeah, I mean, that number's up to 13.5. Excuse me, as I just lose my voice in the middle of the afternoon here, in favor of Green Bay. So if you lock that in at 12.5, getting a little value, it does sound like Bryce Young is going to play there. I'm just going back to the well, Jim, on Indianapolis. I'm going to keep doing it until this Colts offense slows down. They're going to get tripped up at some point. There will be a game where, they're down 2 scores at halftime. I don't know when that's going to happen. But this offense is just rolling right now, rolling over everybody. Doesn't matter if you're a good team, a bad team. The offense has been consistent just about every week. And you just look at some of the weapons for this Colts team. Even if you are a believer that at some point Daniel Jones is going to turn back into the Daniel Jones of old, there's just so much surrounding talent, I think, to keep this thing afloat. You have maybe the best running back in the NFL right now. You have an emerging, if not already, a star at tight end and Tyler Warren, and then 3 really good options in that wide receiver core. And much like we talked about last week, Jim, when I was on the Green Bay Packers, the Steelers defense is just not good. It's not a good unit. Like that Browns game a few weeks ago is doing a lot of work keeping Pittsburgh, truly out of the basement when you look at some of these season-long defensive stats. But it's just not a defense that I could trust right now. I didn't think the Packers really played well until the second half and still put up 35 in that game with 2 missed field goals. They struggled in the red zone. They couldn't run the ball all day. Still got to 35 points on the road in Pittsburgh. I know Mike Tomlin, he's 12-4 against the spread as a home dog off of a loss. We were in the same spot last week. Didn't come through. I know the extended trends would say maybe this is a Steelers spot. I can't get there. I have some concerns about the Colts defense myself. I think Pittsburgh will be able to move it. I can't trust the Steelers defense until we actually see it happen.
I think those Pittsburgh trends temporarily need to be thrown out the window because this team has always had the components of a dominant defense. Multiple levels, the pass rush, the run defense was lights out, and the pass defense was at least good enough. This year, they'll blitz a ton, but they can't cover on the back end. They can't stop the run inside or out. They don't have answers. And Tomlin's staff just keeps going back to blitz, blitz, blitz. Well, all you have to do is get the ball out to your hot read. And Shane Steichen has been coaching at an elite level this year. Like you mentioned, weapons everywhere, slot with downs. Outside possession, Pittman, Warren schemed up. If you want to go play action, Alec Pierce, you can even dump it to Jonathan Taylor. There are answers everywhere, and this is a nightmare matchup for Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh just can't keep up on the scoreboard. They might have some success offensively, not to keep up with this team. So Nick and I both like the Colts -3. Adam, you're going to land third round beginning with the Seahawks. If you want to add anything on Colts Steelers, feel free.
Yeah, we'll go straight to Sunday Night Football because I kind of agree. You guys kind of hit the nail on the head with a lot of that stuff. Pittsburgh, boy, I thought they would be better than this. I thought Rodgers would, kind of dink and dunk his way. I kind of saw that coming, but I thought, people would make plays around him. And I thought the defense would be Pittsburgh defense, and it's just not Pittsburgh defense right now. Seattle, -3 at the Commanders is what I got at. Jaden Daniels returns. And Seattle's still laying points, but the O-line in front of them is banged up and kind of underperforming. The defense has given up about 400 yards per game the last 5 weeks. And you look at Seattle's defense, number 1 versus the run right now. Sam Darnold is making plays. He's leading the league in yards per attempt, yards per completion. He only has 4 interceptions despite chucking it down the field, plus 12 touchdowns. So he's playing well. The defense is lights out, especially against the run. The Seahawks, you talk about West Coast teams coming east. It's a night game, so not as big of a deal as far as internal clock goes. But also Mike McDonough, 4-1-1 against the spread as head coach of the Seahawks on East Coast trips. This year they're 3-0, including on the road. 2 of those were East Coast trips as well. So everything I like about the Seattle Seahawks. Sunday night prime time on the road is a little sketchy. But -3 was a good enough number for me to back the hot team here.
I mean, and not just without Terry McLaurin. Good luck having a downfield like Chris Moore. Really, Luke McCaffrey. That's not scaring anybody. So it gets tighter and tighter on that offense. And Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt had the one big game against the Chargers. God bless him for that. But as many said, he's just a guy. And just a guy, probably not getting it done. Nick, if you got anything on that, go ahead. Otherwise, you have the Saints Rams under 44.
Yeah, it's tough, guys, because I think Adam laid out a really good case. Seattle is the better team. There's no question about it. It is kind of a backs against the wall spot for Washington. You lose this game, all of a sudden you're what, 3-6, and you got the Detroit Lions on the schedule next week. Like, if Washington loses this game, realistically, the season is over. Mm-hmm. But it's a tough week overall, and we could talk about this maybe at the end of the show with all these road favorites. Nonetheless, I always like to get a total in here each week, guys, and I don't love the board as much as I normally do, but the under 44 in Rams Saints is what we're looking at here. So we are leaning in on this Tyler Shuck narrative. I don't think it's going to go well. Maybe we'll see volume. He threw it somehow 30 times in like 19 minutes of game time last week. I don't think the Saints are going to have the ball all that much in this game. I think when they do, it's going to be a real uphill battle to move it. Even when Spencer Rattler was playing relatively well early in the season, this was a team that really struggled to get to the red zone, struggled to cash in on those opportunities. The Rams are coming out of a bye here. I mean, this is about as worst case scenario of a spot as it gets for a guy to make his first career start. But the Rams are not the Detroit Lions. They are not a team that you worry about putting up 40 in a spot like this. This will be a business trip, home trip, I guess, for the Rams, a business game, if you will, where they get in, they do what they need to do. They probably score like 27 points. They hold the Saints to like 10, and it's a convincing win, and you get out and you move on. So to me, this is a spot where the Rams win the game easily. I'm staying away from the side with this creeping up to 14.5 now at FanDuel, but I have very, very little faith in the New Orleans Saints doing anything offensively against that Rams defense, and a really good Rams pass rush, by the way. It's going to get after a team that has an inexperienced quarterback and is without its starting center.
And the starting center is a big deal. Eric McCoy, not just for blocking, but the center calls protections. Tyler Shuck's making his first career start. Was he going to call his own protections against the Rams? And the Rams already know they're going to run what we call these stunts. That's where you send defenders and you loop them over each other. And the Rams are very good at that. And they're going to attack the interior line. Shuck is not nearly as mobile as Spencer Rattler was. So, yeah, this could get very dangerous very fast. Not excited for Tyler Shuck making his first NFL start. My last pick, I'm going with the 49ers laying 2.5 at the Giants. And I know the Giants have been a good story, but I'll tell you this. The Giants have the potential for a really good pass rush. They cannot stop the run. And we saw it with George Kittle back last week. That running game got going. And the 49ers will run it inside, they'll run it outside, but the blocking's there now. The Giants do not have the players against the run. Dexter Lawrence is not playing at a superstar level this year. Linebacker's not good. They're going to gash them on the ground. And then when they do play action, the pass rush has to kind of be stalled off a bit. And then those middle of the field shots, Jennings, Kittle, it's going to be very easy for the 49ers to move the ball against the Giants. And then on the other side of the ball, losing Cam Scadaboo was horrific, not just for him, but for the team, because the drop off in skill at running back to Tyrone Tracy, the 49ers might not have a lot of talent on defense, but they're well coached and they rally and tackle. They get to the ball carrier or the pass catcher very quickly. They don't give up easy yards after the catch. And that's what the Giants need to have a chance. This is exactly the defense that won't give that to them. It might be on the road, but the 49ers win this one by at least 4 points, in my opinion. I'm going to give anybody have a closing thought on that game before I give the closing thought section? Nothing on that. All right. My closing thought this week is it was stunning that in last week's game, all but one contest was decided by double digits. And the one game that was decided by single digits, actually, the Bengals who lost were winning by double digits, both in the beginning of the fourth quarter by 14 and then by 10 with 10 minutes left, and they lost the game. But every other game, double digits. Like I mentioned earlier in the show, it's becoming a league of the haves and the have-nots. Not a lot of middle class. It's like the American economy. But I won't go there. But I'll move to Adam Thompson. That's what I'll do.
That's a future stream for a future day.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, piggybacking off of that, there were 13 games last week. 11-2 were the favorites against the spread. That was tied for the best week in recorded history, which recorded history goes back to about 1970, I'm guessing. All of them covered with ease, by the way. They all covered by at least a touchdown. So, and that hasn't happened for at least 30 years, maybe longer. But yeah, it is becoming a league of haves and have-nots, despite the salary cap and, a league generated for everybody to go 7-9, 9-8, 9-7, whatever, however many games they want to play, 16 or 17. It's tough to be sustained good or bad, but you're starting to see tank modes here for NFL teams, which is not a trend that I like, but it seems to be a trend that is picking up steam.
Nick Whalen, closing thought.
Yeah, just kind of building on what Adam said. I mean, obviously these last 2 weeks have been huge for favorites, 10-5, 11-2 against the spread, 12-3, 11-2 straight up. I'm wondering, guys, is this the week where we get some regression to the mean? Because we have 8 road favorites on this 14 game slate. Like there are some tough spots here, right? Like I think it's easy to look at the 49ers and say, man, well, it's the 49ers. How could they lose to the Giants, without Neighbors, without Scadaboo? The Bears Bengals game. Bears are 3-point road favorites right now. We don't even know who's going to be at quarterback for Cincinnati. I'm just wondering, guys, like how much caution are you approaching this week? Are you betting as much as you normally would? Is there kind of an idea in the back of your mind that, man, I might like some of these road favorites, but we just know that's not how it's going to go for basically a third straight week?
What do you think, Adam?
I actually went in more on favorites this week, and I think it's just kind of matchup driven. Not really, everything's kind of a case by case basis. But there are a lot of big numbers out there, and I jumped on 2 of them. The third one was enticing as well, but I stayed away from it. I think that was the Rams, right? The Rams are what, 13.5, 14? It's some insane number.
Up to 14.5 at some books.
14.5 is maybe untouchable, but
yeah,
just a lot of massive numbers out there. But the way these bad teams are playing, you always kind of look at survivor pools and just pick on 1 or 2 teams. It's kind of trending that way for sports betting too.
Yeah, and I'm with you both. We all placed bets on this show today. And aside from the under game, which Nick didn't pick it aside, we all had minus. We all went with the favorites. And that is the trend right now. It's not being just easy. It's what the league is right now. And you guys mentioned like that 49ers game. Yeah, it's a tighter spread. Those games like that, any game could go anyway, but we're not seeing as much of that. But the bigger spreads, those are the ones. And I think Adam referenced it. These bigger spreads, that's where we're seeing more of the haves and have-nots. The teams are so much better than their opponent. Home road does not even matter. All right, everybody, this has been the Bookies Plus weekly gambling show. Make sure you bookmark bookies.com/picks. Set up that free account so you can access all of our picks, all sports, all year long. Be profitable in week 9, and we will see you next week, Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern.